At the dawn of the new era, those in my village began to migrate away. Higher paying jobs, tastier food, and the luxury of the cities tore families away from their ancestry with ease. Soon, only my people of Tree tended to a land meant for a generation. So when the zone consumed the great fields of my homeland, I was not surprised or scared. Grandfather forced us to live on the edge of the paranormal occurrences. He said he needed the space for hunting, to satiate the hunger in his stomach that couldn't be filled with venison, roots, or any kind of sustenance. But the curled hands in his posture and the wary, glazed look he'd give to the forest no one ever returned from told a different reason. Of course, we did as he bade. Grandfather was the voice of the family, yet when we arrived at the damp cottage far from any petrol station, that tenor fled. Days would pass without notice of his departure or his arrival in those early months. We will bargain and toil, but he will never relent. The wilderness claimed them, and he'd return to us under new furs, tugging along meats and bones after so many moonless nights. We cannot separate our natures from those of our ancestors, my child. By joining ours to the predators we descend from, we sever the line of modernity and conjoin ourselves with our original purpose. Those of oil and fetid blight will rot and waste in their still cities, whereas I will become something more. Perhaps a foundation for potatoes. He would say it with red eyes and blood in his teeth. Perhaps the zone took something far more precious from him. He'd never mentioned the green though. Our house was painted in it, languished in it, suffered in it. In a forest of ever-changing leaves, our home maintained the same simple shade. In my youth, I didn't understand the curiosity of such a thing. I took it as it was, not how it was meant to be. But had I looked further, asked more questions, maybe I would have understood this color green as my first experience into what could be. The subtle, quiet death of noise and bustle stalked the house after grandfather's death. A boy could only handle so many seasons in silence, so eventually I pushed my fears of the darkness aside and headed south, abandoning the maddening quiet I knew in the search of something better. Under the tutelage of my grandfather, I had danced enough with bullet and oil to defend myself, nothing so elegant as the marksmanship he hunted with. But if a bear came upon me, I would hone my own. If only I had known. The zone, in all its infamous bluster and retold glory, never had proper markings. The divide between what was inside and outside lacked any intricate danger or warning signs. I passed into it with no notice, wandering through fickle plants and overgrown ruins. No warning would have sufficed. Any sign or scroll couldn't have dissuaded a young man with the power of that in his hands and a foolish heart beating for adventure. It didn't creep into my bones until late in my first evening. Mother Earth had her melody at night. Shrieking bugs, wrestling predators, chasing down prey. The soft billow of wind pushing through otherwise still trees. These were all sounds known to me, comforting even. Maybe some of the more spoiled boys and girls in the cities the grandfather hated so much would cower. But I had been taught not to suffer the darkness. It was home. The zone was not. Unnatural breaks in the night shores would wake me. Fast. Sudden. The crickets will silence themselves, hidden in the brush. I draw the rifle to my chest between shaking hands and slow down my breaths listening. Most of the time it was nothing, just wind in what would otherwise be a normal night sky. But there were times I was grateful for the steady hug of a weapon. Lights pulsating in the distance, rising out of the ground like miniature sun. Once I passed a naked woman, singing in the twilight hours of the day. As I approached, she melted away, flesh bubbling into a goo of skin and muscle until only one bone remained against the shadow of what was. My curiosity became horror when I realized that I could still hear the notes of music creeping from her skull. Safety was a scarcity, even among things I did understand. I was warned to be wary of those pursuing riches in the zone. Greed turns men into husks, or maybe it unleashes the rotten parts of our souls. But when I heard voices, the first notes of casual laughter I had not tasted in years, curiosity rose in me. I was a starved man, deprived of any kind of humanity. I was still cautious, so I peered through the bushes, careful not to make any noise. I longed for the inner peace they must have, the bravery. I did not for long. Something broke the foliage near me. Angry, huge, leaving behind a vile smell of gangrene and death in its wake. To their credit, the group of soldiers readied themselves fast and with great discipline. But it did not matter. The behemoth shattered the tree line, screaming all the while. The hail of bullets that rained down onto the tank failed to make any change. It tore the only humanity I had witnessed into bits, leaving behind viscera and bone. After it was done, I'd looked around, back into the forest, back into the trees, back at me. It is not hard to say I ran from such a thing. What man wouldn't? Mother taught me that fear finds its way into the hearts of men like a terrible storm. It takes the leaves first and tosses them away. Unloved toys wrenched from nature's hands. Then the rain floods the trails known to boots and paws alike and drowns them, replacing what was known and loved with only one thought: flee. Her words arrest my mind as the darkness howls and nips at my heels. The crash of thunder I imagined in their story became the vicious feelings of trees in the distance. My hands shake as I pull the sides up to my eye. Muscle memory lacking any thought. I can't see anyways. Each jolt of the trigger is a prayer for salvation. Muzzle flashes and depleted rounds light the darkness of night with explosions and steel, but the warmth fails to provide assurances. So I take off again. In the morning, I do not remember the previous night through distance or time. The memories I gain are found through the weakness in my thighs, the buzz of a soul too tired to know anything but the terror of flight.